A shooting in Washington, D.C. goes almost completely unnoticed, even though it was officer involved, so we'll talk a bit about what's happening there. The whole Pelosi and hairstylist thing blows up in epic proportions as everyone's trying to blame everybody else as we go along here. And Democrat mayors fire back at Trump's agenda, so we'll have a look at the agenda and what's going on there. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, guys, and welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch to get to today, including noticing that this narrative is no longer convenient to Democrats. We'll talk a bit about that at the top of the show here, and we'll close out the show with a thing that I like and a couple things that I hate. I'm extra bitter today, so we'll do two for the price of one, but we will still lead that with a thing that I like because we've got to do something positive at the end of this here. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry the daily ignoramus, contemporary, the generational gap on their new night, Wednesday nights at 7:30 Central Time. Go over there and check them out. We also carry the Freckles and Brit Show, the R-Rated Conservative, and the Breakdown with Birkenhoff. So go over there and check everybody out. Pick up some of our swag and help us support great creators over there. All right, let's get up into everything here and see what we've got going on. Starting off with the Dow, which closed above 29,000 once again yesterday. So it looks like we're seeing the stocks go up here. It'll be nice if we start to see the economy go with it there. But just remember that the stock markets that are out there are projections on what the investors think the economy is going to do. So we will know what they're doing there. We'll watch the stocks and hope that everything else goes along with it. Let's read from the investors then, from Investors Business Daily. Dow Jones Futures fall as stock market rally risks mount. Tesla Apple slide. Hot IPOs. Rocket CrowdStrike tumble on earnings, from Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures and S&P 500 futures fell modestly early Thursday, while NASDAQ futures came under pressure. The stock market rally quickly shook off a shakeout Wednesday, closing near session highs, helped by coronavirus vaccine news, but risks of a market pullback continue to grow. Microsoft, Facebook, Google parent Alphabet, Nvidia, and chip equipment makers, fared well, even as Apple stock, Tesla, and some white-hot software makers retreated. Tesla stock fell solidly early Thursday, weighing on tech futures. Apple also lost ground. Meanwhile, new IPO rocket companies CrowdStrike, MongoDB, and Five Below reported quarterly earnings late Wednesday. Costco Wholesale reported August sales. CrowdStrike stock fell sharply overnight despite beat and raise report. MongoDB also beat earnings reviews. MongoDB stock rose modestly after closing below the official buy point but above an early entry. However, Rocket stock tumbled overnight despite delivering booming earnings growth, though the Quicken Loans parent sees slightly lower loan growth in the current quarter 3, but we will start to see that pick back up towards the end of quarter 4 after the election when people start getting ready to prepare their taxes. So keep that in mind there. Rocket companies and 2019 cybersecurity IPO CrowdStrike had recently surged in recent sessions. Crowd stock had reversed lower Wednesday, but has had big gains boosted by results from Salesforce.com last week and Zoom Video on Tuesday. On the upside, Five Below stock jumped overnight on strong earnings and sales. Shares of the teen-focused discounter cleared a buy point on Wednesday. You know, I've been in a Five Below. I had never been in there before. I thought it was a refrigeration store. It's over by the McDonald's in the town that I live in. So I thought that it was over there. But unfortunately, it's not over there. Or that's not what it is, rather. So I went over there and checked it out, and looks like I made somebody mad over on Instagram. But that's what's going to happen there. Thanks for coming in and checking us out. I've been in Five Below before. And if the economy is actually going to pull back and people are going to continue to be out of jobs, we're going to see things like the Dollar Tree, the Dollar Store, and even a Five Below actually start to take up and pick up a little bit, which would be good. I mean, it would be good to see the later half of the millennial generation and Generation Z be a little bit more frugal than people on my half of the millennial generation have been. So that'll be something good going on through this. So, Costco stock climbed modestly overnight after rising to a fresh high Wednesday. August sales rose 15% to $13.56 billion, at least the third straight month of accelerating growth. The stock market rally opened sharply higher Wednesday, but the Nasdaq reversed lower as it flashed new signs of being extended. But instead of starting a pullback, the tech-heavy index reversed higher, while the Dow Jones and S&P 500 index outperformed. The CDC is alerting states to be ready for a coronavirus vaccine in early November. Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, and Tesla stock are on IDB leaderboard. Costco and Facebook stock are on Swing Trader. Microsoft stock is on the IBD long-term leaders list. Microsoft and Nvidia stock are on the IBD 50. All right, on to the futures. Dow Jones futures fell less than 1%, or 0.1% rather, versus fair value, while the S&P 500 futures slid 0.4%. Nasdaq 100 futures sank 1.2%. And Tesla stock and Apple retreating. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Dow futures will likely move on weekly jobless claims data, which will be released at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So about 25 minutes ago that came out. So we will be going and checking that out. Probably for tomorrow we'll be talking a bit about that because that gets released every week. Let's go a little bit on to Yahoo Finance, and then we will move into the news. Stock market news live updates. Stock futures fall after record-setting rally. Investors look ahead to jobless claims. From Emily McCormick. Stock futures were slightly lower Thursday morning after Wall Street capped off yet another record-setting session a day earlier. Investors looked ahead to the Department of Labor's weekly jobless claims reports, set for release later Thursday morning. Each of the S&P 500 and Nasdaq ended the regular session Wednesday at their highest ever closing levels. The broad rally lifted stocks in sectors that have been underperforming so far during the pandemic, with the utilities, materials, and real estate sectors leading advances in the S&P 500 on the day. The Dow spiked above 29,000 for the first time since February and came within 500 points of its all-time record level. I love the fact that real estate is coming in here and fueling some of this because, that shows that you're seeing vacancies in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Kenosha, Milwaukee, Madison, where people are getting up and getting ready to go out to further more rural areas because they can work remotely. They don't have to be all living on top of each other in New York anymore. And if you're in one of these big cities, there's a good chance that you're going to get looted in a riot somewhere. So that's what we're seeing here. The Dow spiked above, I read that one already. Oh, wait, no, I didn't. The Dow spiked above 29,000 for the first time since February and came within 500 points of its all-time record level. An array of individual companies across industries rallied to their own respective record closes, including Visa, Nike, UPS, PayPal, and Lululemon. In addition to big tech names, Alphabet, Microsoft, and Amazon, Costco shares added to gains in late trading after closing at a record, after the company reported August comparable sales that topped consensus expectations and e-commerce sales that surged by more than 100%. Apple and Tesla shares each ended a session lower, however, and gave back some steep gains after their stock splits at the end of last month. So, yeah, we're looking at a little bit of futures. There are some industries that are pulling this up, and there are some industries that are pulling this up down. So, yeah, that's what we're going to see out of this coming up forward. And now we will see the story that the news forgot. And actually, this was brought to my attention by Steven, and I have not seen this on any mainline site yet at this point here, just local affiliates, which is interesting. Very interesting to me, the fact that this is out there. So, from Fox 5, Washington, D.C., 18-year-old shot, killed by D.C. police officer during pursuit. No author given. D.C. police are investigating an officer shot DC police are investigating after an officer shot and killed a man on Orange Street, Southeast, on Wednesday. I've been there. The family has identified the victim as 18-year-old Dion K. Police responded to the scene shortly before 4 p.m. to investigate a report of an armed man in the area. When they arrived, they reportedly encountered a number of people in and around a vehicle. According to police, when the people around the vehicle saw the officers, two of them reportedly ran away from or with officers in pursuit. During the chase, one of them, fleeing men, reportedly pulled out a gun and the officer fired at him. According to police, he died after being transported to a local hospital. Police also charged two other men who were at the scene. Marciel Smith, 19, of Southeast, was charged with carrying a pistol without a license. Deontay Brown, of Southeast, was charged with no permit. The officers who were involved with the incident were put on leave, according to the police. The body cameras were activated during the encounter, and the video is currently being reviewed. Anyone with information is asked to contact NPD at 202-727-9099. And it's interesting to me the fact that we are not seeing any of this anywhere. I mean, we've heard almost buttfuck nothing about this throughout the day. Absolutely nothing throughout it. So, I don't know if this is just not politically convenient for the Democrats to have the riots going on in the streets anymore. And this is the same thing with Los Angeles. You heard a little bit about the shooting in Los Angeles yesterday. And almost nothing of it. Everything that's coming out of California is all about Nancy Pelosi at this point. Nobody's talked about that one there. And I think this is media manipulation, because under any other circumstance, look at what happened with Jacob Blake. He was walking away from police officers that already had their guns drawn. Even at that point, you got to see that something's a little bit fishy going on with that. And then he got to the side of the car. He didn't climb in. He didn't put his leg up in the car. He reached while he was committing a felony. And they burned the city down over this. And yeah, I mean, Don Lemon came on and said, well, this is helping Trump in the polls. We can't keep doing this anymore. So, I mean, it's almost disgusting the way that this, I mean, I don't know if this is media manipulated or if this is actual generic on the ground stuff. Or maybe some people believe that there's evidence here that implicates these kids. I don't know where that's ever mattered at any of this point before that. But yeah, this is some shady shit if nobody else is going to talk about this one here. And we are going to talk about this over on the Freedom Scoop Media Group, but nobody else is going to sit off and talk about it. They talked about it on the Generational Gap last night, too. I mean, that was more their shooting the shit episode and not really news, but yeah. This has disappeared almost as immediately as it came out. But there have been some protests that have come up out of this. They just haven't been covered by the news. From WTOP News out of the D.C. Metro, from Zeke Hartner, protests are up again after D.C. officer shoots and kills one in Southeast. Protesters took to the streets in Washington, D.C. Thursday morning, calling for change in the wake of a teen shot and killed by police Wednesday afternoon in Southeast. The shooting, one of the two that involved D.C. police officers Wednesday, prompted a protest over about 100 people outside a D.C. police station Wednesday night, and small new protests popped up Thursday morning. The other shooting did not result in any injuries, and the suspects are still wanted by police. In Thursday's protest, TV footage showed protesters with a sign calling for D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser to fire Police Chief Peter Newsham. And looks like we've got a little bit of marching going on over there. But yeah, I mean, we're not seeing any of the big violent riots anymore. BLM is not here co-opting this or anything. And I mean, they are on the scene in a hurry if this is something that politically fits their narrative. It took 2 hours in Kenosha for rioters to descend on the east side of Kenosha, east of the train tracks, and start blowing shit up and destroying shit. It took 2 hours. And yet, there's buttfuck nothing here. Absolutely nothing here. About a dozen protesters gathered outside the mayor's house, chanting "No justice, no peace," with police nearby. Here's what police say happened in the shooting. We read that already. So, yeah, they're not going to riot in D.C. Which is a little bit funny to me, like I said, especially being in D.C. That suddenly, this would be the focal point too. This would be, I mean, if you want to get news coverage, do it outside the White House. And yet, we hear crickets on this one. So that's what we're seeing up off of this. I've got one, speaking of police brutality and everything else that goes along with it, here from Breitbart. Now, they are technically green check verified, but I don't usually use them because they are so biased in the other direction. I mean, I try to read biased news sources and give an unbiased opinion, but I mean, Breitbart is one of the ones where you kind of got to watch yourself reading them here. But let's see what we've got. Facebook declares Kyle Rittenhouse's actions mass murder, won't allow posts in support. From Elam Bokhari, Facebook is officially designating the actions of Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old who allegedly killed 2 people and wounded another in Kenosha, after being mobbed and attacked by rioters, a mass murderer, despite the fact that this has not been proven in court. Facebook confirmed that it would remove any posts that support Rittenhouse. Conservative author and YouTube personality Mark Dice reported that his Facebook page had received a threat of suspension after he posted a video of Rittenhouse offering to give medical assistance to wounded protesters in Kenosha shortly before the shooting. Facebook just removed a video I posted showing Kyle Rittenhouse offering help to a wounded protester in Kenosha, said Dice, who also posted the video on Twitter. Facebook, he said, is now threatening to delete my entire account. Bye. That's what I would say if they did that to me. In a comment to Breitbart News, a Facebook spokesman confirmed that the company is removing posts in support of Rittenhouse because the incident is considered a mass murder by the company. That is jury tampering, right then and there. The social media company that's putting the information out there is putting an information out there along with a threat if you challenge their narrative. That is, I'm pretty sure that's against the law. I can't say for 100% sure if that's against the law, but I believe that's jury tampering because it's going to be impossible to assemble a 12-person jury that can be impartial in this, especially if Facebook is not allowing people to speak out in support of something. Ooh, that might be a federal case too. Somebody might want to tell the the Wisconsin AG about that one. Not that he would do anything. He's a fucking cuck under Evers, but still. In a comment to Breitbart News, a Facebook spokesman confirmed that the company is removing... I read that one already. We've designated the shooting in Kenosha a mass murder and are removing posts in support of the shooter, including this one, said the spokesman. Okay. A mass shooting requires 4 people to be killed. By their admission. And there were only 2 in this situation. So yeah, there's some fucky stuff going on here. Once again, it's Breitbart, so take it with a grain of salt. But yes, I believe any of this. I know that I've had trouble posting in support of this as well. So I know that if this turns into an echo chamber, it'll be just like Twitter at this point. So that's what we'll see up off of this one here. Now, let's move into the most important news of the week. Of course, the congresswoman that can't follow her own rules and went out and got a haircut. All right, starting from KRON4 out of San Francisco, Pelosi says salon visit was a setup, wants an apology. Hairgate continues from Sarah Stinson. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi continues to take heat after she was caught on camera getting her hair done inside E-Salon on Union Street on Monday, when salons were still completely shut down. Pelosi says she was set up by the salon owner, who she said had come to her, who said she had her come to the salon for an appointment and then sent the videos to Fox News. The man who styled her confirms the story, and Mayor London Breed is backing her up. I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years many times, and that they said we're able to accommodate people 1 person at a time, and we can set it up that time. I trusted that, Pelosi said. It's blown up in the way that it's distracted us from the real issue. The fact is we don't have any good, solid federal leadership. Of course, now it's the president's fault. Helping to facilitate over 180,000 Americans, a citation needed please, have died as a result of this virus, and we had what we needed from day one and from this federal administration when we would probably not be in as bad a situation as we are, Mayor Breed said. Oh, Okay, so that's Mayor Breed, not Nancy Pelosi. A statement released by the attorney of the hairstylist, Jonathan DiNardo, who did Pelosi's hair, Monday said, "This office is in possession of photographs, videos, and witness information that Ms. Caius, the owner of E-Salon, contrary to her prior statements to the press, has actually been operating her business during the stay-at-home orders and similar executive orders limiting in-store operations since as far back as April of 2020. Oh boy. Oh boy, now they're going to go straight after her too. So, yeah, Pelosi went in. And this is the worst thing is Nancy Pelosi should know the rules. And they keep telling us that, okay, these people are leaders. They shouldn't be leaders, first off. They are public servants. We shouldn't be looking to these people for leadership. That's the biggest problem that we have going on here. But as long as they're going to take this leadership role, then they should know the rules and go out of their ways to follow them. Not just specifically go out and, oh, well, here's somebody who's not following the rules. We'll bust the fuck out of anybody else to do so. So we're sitting in a situation right now where I don't know that anybody's going to wind up being in the right. And I've got some more news stories to corroborate what I have to say there, but I can't believe this. This is what we're fighting over in 2020. Figure that one out. All right, let's keep going here from Fox News. Pelosi's hairstylist claims through lawyer that salon owner okayed Democrats' visit. From David Arrow. A San Francisco cosmetologist who works at the salon that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited earlier this week attempted Wednesday to distance himself from the salon's owner, Erica Caius. In a statement issued by his lawyer, hairstylist Jonathan DiNardo appeared to agree with Pelosi's accusation that her appointment at E-Salon on Monday was a setup designed to embarrass the Democrat for allegedly ignoring coronavirus rules, according to reports. The fact that Ms. Caius is now objecting to Speaker Pelosi's presence at E-Salon, and from a simple surface-level review of Ms. Caius's political leanings, it appears Ms. Caius is furthering a setup of Speaker Pelosi for her own vain aspirations. The statement issued by lawyer Matthew Solomonpour said, well, you also have to consider the fact that Pelosi fell into it if it was a setup. Mr. DiNardo's name has now been dragged through the mud for simply following Ms. Caius's recommendations. According to Solomonpour, DiNardo worked on Pelosi's hair after receiving approval from Caius. DiNardo has worked in the establishment for 6 years and has been in regular communication with the owner, the lawyer said. DiNardo claims during a phone call last weekend, in which Caius gave him approval to work on Pelosi's hair Monday, the salon owner was openly critical of the 80-year-old House Speaker who has represented San Francisco in Congress since 1887. Oops, I'm sorry, I meant 1987. Ms. Caius took special interest in the appointment during the telephone call, wherein she made several vitriolic and incendiary comments about Speaker Pelosi. Oh, can I get a citation out of that, please? And her purported responsibility for temporarily suspending operations of Ms. Caius's business, according to the statement, which was obtained by San Francisco's KRON-TV. The lawyer representing Jonathan DiNardo, oh, we read that one already, and the statement is below there. Solomonpour also said his office has evidence that Caius has actually been operating her business during stay-at-home orders, where she was seen styling various clients' hair, ignoring social distancing guidelines, and not wearing protective equipment, as recently as a few days prior to Speaker Pelosi's arrival at E-Salon on August 31st. And Pelosi was also, as we saw from the photos yesterday, and the video that's stopped in autoplay right here, that Pelosi herself was also not wearing a mask through all of this here. Everybody involved in this had the opportunity to say no, including Caius, including the stylist, including Pelosi. Everybody had the opportunity to say no at this point. So the more and more that comes out of this, the more and more I look at this and say, wow, everybody's an asshole in this situation. He added that Caius has also been almost forcing stylists at the salon to violate orders for her own financial benefit in the form of receiving lease payments, the statement alleged, according to the station. So yeah. And absolutely. Hey, stand up to California. Operate your speakeasy salon. I know a lot of other people that did. In Texas, it'd just be another fucking day at this point. Oh, the government tells me you want to close? Well, fuck you. I'm going to make some money anyway. So, either direction off of this here, it's... But in this situation, once again, everybody involved had the opportunity to say no. So I don't understand why nobody was saying no at this position. Everybody's an asshole here. All right. I've got one here from the Daily Wire. Nancy Pelosi's daughter releases letter from law firm attacking owner of salon that Pelosi visited as setup. And we'll just go very briefly on this one here because I feel like this is going to have... I read the headline and I thought it was going to have different information, but now that I've read deeper into these other two stories, I think this is going to be a lot of the same. But let's just grab this from one other angle here quick, and then we will move on. Christine Pelosi, the daughter of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, released a letter from a law firm on Wednesday afternoon that attacked the owner of the salon that Pelosi recently visited in an apparent violation of coronavirus lockdown rules. The letter from attorney Matthew Solomonpour was on behalf of Jonathan DiNardo, a California certified cosmetologist based out of San Francisco. Yes, we read all of this already in the previous articles, so we're going to skip by off of this one here and keep going. Dave Rubin had to weigh in on this one more time. So I've got one more on this one, and then we'll talk about the political aspects of it. And then we'll move on into other news, because we've spent entirely too much time talking about Nancy Pelosi's hair. Dave Rubin on Pelosi's salon visit. Political class operates one way while the rest of us scrounge for survival, which I think is about the same thing that Ron Helton just said over in the chat. But let's see what Talia Kaplan has to say on this. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is going to live however she wants, and her constituents will live another way. Political pundit and author Dave Rubin told Fox and Friends on Wednesday. Rubin, who spoke from LA, made the comment reacting to Pelosi's visit to a California hair salon earlier this week, which was captured on security footage showing her walking through the salon with wet hair and without a mask over her mouth or nose. The stylist doing her hair can be seen in the video following her, wearing a black face mask. On Wednesday, President Trump slammed Pelosi for constantly lecturing everyone else after she visited the San Francisco hair salon earlier this week, despite local ordinances keeping salons closed amid the coronavirus pandemic. When host Steve Doocy asked Rubin what he thinks about the hypocrisy, he says, "That little video should be the video of 2020, because that sums up, with no audio, it sums up exactly what the Democrats have decided to do, which is, do as I say, not as I do." I had to work on my Rubin impression. He went on to say, "This stuff is not a joke because it's destroying people's livelihoods." I agree with that. I'm here in California, and I'm fighting to keep a sane California because we've had the sane California in the past. Let's not forget that Ronald Reagan was once the governor of California, Rubin added. He went on to note that he has 2 friends who actually are hairstylists here in Los Angeles. Both of them have closed their salons. I get now what I assume is an illegal haircut in an open-air garage from one of them, who's out of the business altogether, and she's just doing me a favor. And I have another one who's got some makeshift thing out of her house and has one person at a time and knows that she can't continue to make a living this way, Rubin continued. So when you see Nancy Pelosi do this, it's very reminiscent of just 2 months ago when she's standing in front of her twin Sub-Zero fridges with her tons of ice cream. And she's really at the Marie Antoinette let them eat cake phase of this thing, which she's going to live however she wants, and her constituents will live another way. And a lot of that is fact-check true. So yes, and once again, this was the biggest thing for me is, okay, you're going to go try and point the finger at the salon owner at this point and the worker when you had the opportunity to come out and say no. And I want to get that phone call because I want to see who initiated it. I don't know if the owner came out and said, "Hey, Pelosi, come in here and work for us," or Pelosi came out and said, "I need a haircut and I need to figure out how to get this all done. So figure this out and we'll do the details off of this here." But somebody is in the wrong here, and a lot of people are assholes about it too. So now for the political implications. From CNN, from Chris Eliza, opinion piece. Nancy Pelosi just handed Trump a campaign gift. Nancy Pelosi is one of the, if not the smartest political strategists in the Democratic Party. As such, she knows that appearances matter in politics a lot, which is why her decision to have her hair done indoors at a shop in San Francisco makes so little sense. In security footage obtained by Fox News, Pelosi is shown inside the salon without a mask. Fox also reported that the owner of the salon, Erica Kius, was angry that Pelosi had been allowed to violate the rules put in place during the coronavirus pandemic that mandates haircuts can only be given outside. Kius said it was a slap in the face that she went in, that she feels that she could just go and get her stuff done while no one else can go in and I can't work. Pelosi's office told CNN that the speaker had worn a mask for the entirety of the visit except for when she had her hair washed. The security footage shows Pelosi with what appears to be wet hair. This business offered for the speaker to come in on Monday and told her they were allowed by the city to have one customer at a time in the business. Pelosi spokesman Drew Hamill said the speaker complied with the rules as presented to her by this establishment. Pelosi responded later Wednesday by saying, "I take responsibility for trusting the word of the neighborhood salon I've been to over the years many times, and when they said we're able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup, so I take responsibility for falling for a setup." The problem is that Pelosi was told wrong. Her hair salons can operate outdoors according to new San Francisco regulations that went into place last Friday, which she would have known. When you're the Speaker of the House and a very vocal critic of President Trump's flouting of best practices to limit the spread of COVID-19, you can't rely on what hairstylists tell you. You double check whether you're allowed to go into the salon and whether you need to always be wearing a mask. Because if you don't, this happens. I don't normally credit Chris Cillizza for being right, but Chris Cillizza is abso-fucking-lutely right on this. And it's like I've been saying right from the beginning of this. Even if Kius came out and said, "Oh yeah, no, we can take care of you, no problem, no problem," Nancy Pelosi had the opportunity to reach out to the city and say, "Okay, is this true?" She had the ability to do so, and I'm sure that she knows city governance, so I'm sure that it would have been just a quick text message. I don't think this would have taken a lot of effort to come and figure out. And she had the opportunity to say no. So yeah, I'll call balls and strikes with everybody. The president, Cillizza, CNN, everybody else. Cillizza got this one right on the fucking nose. Pelosi had every opportunity to say no to this. And she didn't. So she is just as much at fault as anybody else who winds up being at fault for this. Alright, let's stop talking about Pelosi here, because, she looks like a fucking skeleton. Even with a fresh blowout. Alright, so I wanted to read you guys a little bit from the Trump agenda before talking about why the Trump agenda is important. And I've got a couple news stories here, including a pair from the Daily Wire right in a row, about some reactions to the Trump agenda. But I just want to page through this with you guys and see what we've got going on here. So, of course, it is fighting for you is going to be the agenda. So I'm going to go through the bullet points here and let the articles go into a little bit more detail from this. So jobs, create 10 million new jobs in 10 months, create 1 million new small businesses, cut taxes to boost take-home pay and keep jobs in America, enact fair trade deals that protect American jobs, made in America tax credits. That's a little bit more protectionist than I'm comfortable with. And I used to be like top protectionism. Expand opportunity zones, continue deregulatory agenda for energy independence. Eradicate COVID-19, develop a vaccine by the end of 2020, return to normal in 2021. Make all critical medicines and supplies for healthcare workers in the United States. Refill stockpiles and prepare for future pandemics. End our reliance on China, bring back 1 million manufacturing jobs from China, tax credits for companies that bring back jobs from China. Allow 100% expensing deductions for essential industries like pharmaceuticals or robotics who bring back their manufacturing to the U.S. No federal contracts for companies who outsource to China. Hold China fully accountable for allowing the virus to spread around the world. Healthcare. Cut prescription drug prices. Put patients and doctors back in charge of our healthcare system. Lower healthcare insurance premiums. End surprise billing. Cover all pre-existing conditions. protect Social Security and Medicare, protect our veterans, and provide world-class health care and services. And surprise billing, I like the idea of that too, and give us the ability to go out to a doctor and say, hey, how much is this going to cost? Rather than making it illegal for people to say, or to tell you how much something is going to cost ahead of time. I do like some of this stuff that I'm seeing going forward. I know this was enough to actually carry Tim Pool into the MAGA beanie and say that he is going to vote for Trump. I can't wait to see the red beanie. Education, provide school choice to every child in America. Teach American exceptionalism. Drain the swamp, pass congressional term limits, end bureaucratic government bullying of U.S. citizens and small businesses. Expose Washington's money trail and delegate powers back to the people in the states. Thank you. That warmed my little Federalist heart right there. Drain the globalist swamp by taking on international organizations that hurt American citizens. If you drain the globalist swamp, where are you going to find all the chemicals that they put in the water to turn the frickin' frogs gay? No, I'm not going to rip my shirt off. Is this the one that I want to do? Yeah, this is the one I wanted to get to specifically. Defend our police, fully fund and hire more police and law enforcement officers. Increase criminal penalties for assaults on law enforcement officers. Prosecute drive-by shootings as acts of domestic terrorism. Bring violent extremist groups like Antifa to justice and end cashless bail and keep dangerous criminals locked up until trial. I'm a little bit on the fence about that one there, but I mean, that's what we're seeing up off the agenda here, and it looks like Cuomo and some other Democrat mayors have had something to say about this. Let's keep going here, though, from NPR. Republican convention shows Trump's second-term agenda looks just like his first. From Kelsey Snell. Would you guys be able to handle it? If I talked like this for the whole time I read NPR, because that's how they talk over at NPR. Would you guys like that? Would that be good for you? Or would you fall asleep at the wheel while you're driving anywhere? All right. Central promise of last week's Republican National Convention was a pledge that President Trump would use a second term to build on elements of his first term with very few updates and changes. The 4 days of convention programming showed a Republican Party whose policies are bound to Trump, but GOP divisions over many of those policies prevented much of the 2016 Trump agenda from ever becoming law. And that dynamic was in place well before the coronavirus pandemic changed politics. This is the unifying national agenda that will bring our country together, Trump said on the final night of the convention in a speech that included sharp attacks on Joe Biden, the Democratic presidential nominee. So tonight I'll say to all Americans, this is the most important election in the history of our country. Only because it was more important than the last election, which was the most important election in the history of our country, but not as important as the next election, which will be the most important election in the history of our country. Republicans started their convention by readopting the same platform that propelled Trump to the White House in 2016. That platform included familiar goals of reforming immigration policy, building a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, balancing the budget by 2026, and repealing the ACA. Longtime Trump backers like Jim Jordan say that's what voters want. The American people appreciate the fact that he's done what he said, Jordan said in an interview. You go down the list: cut taxes, reduce regulations, lowest unemployment in 50 years prior to the virus. Aside from the tax cuts and the updated North American Free Trade Agreement, the majority of the policies Trump now touts were done through executive actions without agreement from Congress. Republicans controlled Congress and the White House for Trump's first 2 years in office. During that time, Republican Party was at an impasse on most of the major issues like spending, immigration, and infrastructure, and health care, because Paul Ryan has never seen a dollar that he didn't want to spend. I feel like he's going to win, Jordan said, and then I think the real question is, can we take back the House? But the chances of the Republicans winning the House are slim because the mainstream media told us so, and Trump's convention speech, as well as the message from the 4-day event, did not focus much on Congress, the House, the Senate, or the partnership needed to implement this broad agenda. One area that Jordan and other Republicans want to tackle is cutting spending. But budget experts say it's a longtime GOP goal that candidate Trump embraced and then largely ignored in office. Yeah, that's fact check true, because he's also never seen a dollar that he didn't want to spend. So that's for the most part what they have to say on the agenda. It's a lengthy article here, but for the most part they're just going to go out and keep saying that it's the same, it's more of the same, more of the same, more of the same, but with an addition of the vaccine for the virus by the end of 2020. So we'll see if he can actually get elected and implement it. I'm wavering on the maybe side of voting for the guy. I'm on the maybe yes at this point. I was on the absolutely not after the Patriot Act. And then I was on the maybe yes after, or maybe no side rather, after the UAE and Israel deal. And then, after everything that happened over the past week, the fact that he came to Kenosha and just wanted to see progressives go away completely, I'm on the maybe yes side right now, but we will see what happens as we go along. From campus reform. Students love Trump's second-term agenda when they think it's Biden's. From Ophelia Jacobson. The Trump campaign recently released its agenda for a second term, building off the administration's first-term accomplishments. Campus reform asked students about some of the initiatives listed on the agenda without telling them they were part of Trump's agenda. Instead, students were told that the agenda was Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden's. The students seemed to like the ideas listed, which included stopping endless wars and bringing our troops home, wiping out globalist terrorists who threaten to harm Americans, and dismantling human trafficking networks. The fight on terrorism has always been important, especially in America, so getting rid of stuff that can harm American lives is perfect, one student said after hearing that Biden wanted to wipe out global terrorists. I think that's a great initiative. Really important because obviously human trafficking, especially in South Florida, which is where I'm from, is a huge issue. So from what it sounds like a great idea, another student said in response to hearing about dismantling human trafficking networks. Some of the students said that the ideas had an influence on whether or not they would vote for Biden in November. I still haven't decided yet, but these things all sound great and they're definitely making me lean towards Biden, one student said. Campus reform then mentioned that this was Trump's agenda, not Biden's. It surprised me a little because I don't have the highest opinion of the president at the time, but I think that's great, one student said in response to learning that Trump administration allocated more than $400 million to dismantle human trafficking networks. I think everyone, including myself, could be a bit more looking at the policies of the president rather than their character, another student replied. In this time, not a lot of good he does is heard. It does help knowing that he's doing these things, one student said. So, yeah. It's a media war. It's an info war, as Alex Jones more aptly put it. And it absolutely 100% is an information war. The mainstream media is using whatever they can to try and make the president look bad. And they're telling you all these awful things and saying, oh, well, the only way to get peace is with Biden. And then when people actually look at what the agenda is, they're in support of it. So that's what we see off of that. And as promised, I have a pair from the Daily Wire. Democrat mayors of lawless cities that Trump intends to defund respond to his plan, from Ryan Saavedra. The Trump administration announced on Wednesday that it's going after lawless cities that have allowed violent anarchists to loot and riot by preventing them from taking federal funding. My administration will do everything in its power to prevent weak mayors and lawless cities from taking federal dollars while they let anarchists harm people, burn buildings, and ruin lives and businesses, Trump tweeted. We're putting them on notice today. The 4 cities that were reportedly named in a memo from the president included Portland, Seattle, New York City, and Washington, D.C. That would be a hard one to square the circle of. How can you not take federal dollars when the federal government is legitimately based in that city? That would be a hard square to circle. So far, all of the Democratic mayors of those cities have responded to the news, except D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio responded by writing on Twitter, "While real Donald Trump spent the year hiding from COVID-19, New York City led the fight back. Now we're trying to recover, and he's making unconstitutional political threats against us. Mr. President, we'll see you in court. We've beaten you there before, and we'll do it again." That's pretty fucking petty. I can't operate on my own. Give me more money, or I'll take you to court. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler responded, "Trump threatens to withdraw federal funds, possibly including health, education, and safety net dollars. Americans are relying on to get through this pandemic and economic crisis." Once again, only progressive communities with Democrat mayors, which he labels anarchist jurisdictions, including Portland, are targeted. "This is a new low, even for the president," Wheeler continued. He continues to believe that disenfranchising people living in this country to advance his petty grudges is an effective political strategy. The rest of us know it is dangerous, destructive, and divisive. Well, here's the problem with you, Ted Wheeler, specifically. You have been offered federal aid numerous times to try and get the burning and looting and everything else that's going on around your city under control. And you gave the finger back to the government. You didn't just say no. You did this to the federal government with the letter that you sent. You did not just say no. So if you can't take the federal help and the federal agents, then why the fuck would we give you federal dollars? You made your own bet on this one. For New York, I'm willing to at least hear the review on this, but Wheeler, you made your own fucking bet on this one. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan responded by writing on Twitter saying, "This is the latest attempt to distract from the fact that COVID-19 has infected over 6 million Americans, killed 185,000 people, citation needed please, and destroyed the American economy. The only anarchy zone in America where rule of law is disregarded is at the White House." Really? I want to hang out there if that's the case. And once again, you literally had a portion of your city taken over by people with guns that they called, briefly, the Chapel Hill Autonomous Zone. You have no room to talk on this one. President Trump cannot defund Seattle. It's unlawful. Surely the Attorney General has advised the President of the United States that he does not have the power to decide who gets funding based on his political interests. No, it's probably because he doesn't want to just light up the dollar bill and burn it. Durkan later added, "America's cities will not be distracted by his actions. We will continue to work to bridge divides, rebuild our economy, address gun violence and systemic racism, and make our cities more just and equitable." So that's what we're seeing up off of this, and the three mayors did come back and reply. And once again, I'm willing to at least hear a review on Seattle and New York. But Portland? No. Like I said, Wheeler came out and said, "You know what, fuck you. We don't want your assistance here." So I'd say give him what he wants. He doesn't want the assistance? Then he doesn't get the money either. So that's what we have going on there. Another one here from the Daily Wire, also from Saavedra. Cuomo snaps over feds defunding New York City. "Trump better have an army to protect him if he comes here." New York Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo snapped late on Wednesday night after news broke that the Trump administration is beginning a review process to defund 4 cities, all run by Democrats for not cracking down on riots and looting, while also cutting budgets from police departments as violent crime surges. "He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York," Cuomo responded in what many deemed was a threat towards the president. "New Yorkers don't want to have anything to do with him." No shit, Sherlock. Why the fuck do you think he moved? My administration will do everything in its power to prevent weak mayors and lull the cities from taking federal dollars while they let anarchists harm people, burn buildings, and ruin lives and businesses, Trump tweeted late on Wednesday. We're putting them on notice today. Trump's tweet came after the New York Post published a report that said that the administration is seeking to cut federal funding from New York City, Portland, Seattle, and Washington, D.C., the Post reported. And we read all that already. We read this already. So yes, Cuomo has officially made a threat to the president. De Blasio and Durkin have said that they're both going to take him to court, and Wheeler said, just give me that fucking money. Don't give me the troops, but give me the money. So, yeah. And honestly, I would do it. People are going to start moving away from these places in droves once they figure out that they can't get the Gibbs anymore. So yeah, a lot of these places made their own beds, let them sleep in it. And let the voters decide. That's part of what they can do as well. De Blasio can come out and give money away to people in the form of federal dollars being laundered through his hands and say, hey, look what I did for you. Hey, vote for me again. So that's what we're seeing up off of this here. I've got a pair now from the New York Post. LA Mayor, city workers to be furloughed during the fiscal emergency from Vincent Barone. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti will be among the more than 150,000 city workers to be hit with furloughs during an unprecedented fiscal emergency, he said on Wednesday. The LA City Council voted earlier Wednesday to declare the emergency and signed off on plans for the furloughs as well as retirement buyouts for another roughly 1,280 employees, a local NBC affiliate reported. The furloughs apply to us as elected officials and to all civilian employees, including those who work in our office. So yes, the mayor said during a news briefing when asked if he would also be furloughed. I donated 2 months' salary earlier this year during the pandemic, so about a sixth of my net income, he went on. But I absolutely believe that we have to lead by example and we can't ask more from folks than we're willing to do ourselves, Garcetti went on. LA expects revenue from 2021 fiscal year to fall anywhere between $45 million to $409 million below the initial $6.68 billion estimates, the station reported. The furloughs will zap about 10% of LA city workers, bringing in $104.2 million in savings. So, I've got some questions on this. First off, is this anything more than just a blind election campaign? And how much was he making to begin with? And second off, I mean, honestly, once again, balls and strikes. If Garcetti is willing to do this to try and make it better for the people of his district, hey, good on him. You shouldn't be going into politics for the money anyway. You shouldn't be going into politics to try and make yourself rich. So to have an elected official come out and say, hey, I'm just the same as you guys, so I'm going to take the furlough myself. Good on Garcetti. Absolutely. I will call balls and strikes, and I don't like Eric Garcetti. I don't like a lot of the things that he's done over his tenure that I've heard about, especially given the fact that I have family that lives in his city, but honestly, good on him. Absolutely. Once again, these are people, the elected officials are supposed to work for the people, not the other way around. All right, Antifa member probed in deadly Portland shooting describes estranged man, sister of Antifa member probed. Described estranged man from Jaren Steinbusch. The Antifa security guard allegedly being probed in the deadly shooting of a President Trump supporter in Portland was abusive to his mother and it leached off the family, the man's sister said in an interview, adding that she has received death threats. April Raynell, 36, who identified Michael Forrest Raynell to police after the shooting, told the Daily Mail at her Oregon home that her brother had been estranged from the family for 3 years after verbally abusing the dementia-stricken mother, a retired teaching assistant. Police sources have said that Raynell, who proudly calls himself 100% Antifa, is being investigated for Saturday's fatal shooting of Aaron J. Danielson, 39, a man who had just been part of a caravan of cars supporting Trump. His sister told the news outlet that she received death threats and dozens of threatening phone calls and messages the day after the shooting, some from members of the right-wing group Patriot Prayer that Danielson had joined for a protest. At 7:50 a.m., I got woken up by a phone call from someone who thought I was my mom, April told the Daily Mail. They named her address and said, "Your brother is a murderer, and we know you're hiding him. If you don't turn him over to the police, bad things will happen. Your whole family is in danger." Yeah, this shit is way too far. I'm sorry. I don't know who was actually making these calls, but this shit is way too far. She added, "My mom has dementia and stress-induced seizures. This could have literally killed her if they had found her. When I tried to reason with them, they kept shouting, screaming the same thing until I hung up on them." The distraught sister said the threats kept pouring in as family, including her husband, was contacted on social media. One message said, "Patriot Prayer says hello," with a picture of me sent to my husband. It was very threatening. Raynell had been in a downward spiral and racking up debts for several years after he stopped earning money from his professional snowboarding career. April told the outlet, "He was this nebulous figure who popped in and out of our lives, usually demanding money from our mom, and if she didn't have it, he'd guilt her until she did. And not that she had money to give. She said we were a poor family growing up, but she always gave to him." April said her brother never even paid her back after she lent him her grandmother's inheritance money when she was 12. "I eventually gave up trying because I saw this pattern, that he only reaches out to us when he wants something from us, either watch my kids for free, give me money, or telling us he should inherit the family property." Yeah, this sounds like Antifa, 100%. Gimme, 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 gimme. So, yeah, this guy, I don't know. I doubt that he's going to get the justice that he wants, and of course, Kamala Harris is going to pay his bail so he gets out of jail right away because, hey, he did something on her side. This is getting dangerous and people are starting to die. And I mean, I know that we saw the picture from the reporter yesterday. "Oh, well, I'm just outside Portland and look at all this burn." And it was this pristine park. The Civil War went on for years. And like Tim Pool said yesterday, I mean, it wasn't like violence everywhere all the time. People still went to their ice cream socials. They still had a society functioning during the Civil War. It was just a few battlefields here and there. So, we're getting there, folks. We are. And if you have not stocked up yet, it may be time to go stock up on some weapons. Defensively, of course, Wojcicki. Alright, let's keep going here. I've got one from Tim Pool, a tweet. "If the charges are dropped, this country will burn. I only hope that true justice is served regardless of external outcomes." So what he's referring to is training material that was put out by the Minneapolis Police Department on what to do on a resisting suspect. And it's titled, "Okay, they're in handcuffs, now what?" And pointing out the fact that sudden cardiac arrest typically occurs immediately following a violent struggle, place the subject in the recovery position, that's the recovery position right there, to alleviate positional asphyxia. Once in handcuffs, get EMS on scene quickly to monitor and transport. Sign a transport hold on these individuals, complete a CIC report. And yeah, that is, according to this training material, what they call the recovery position to prevent asphyxia, to prevent anything bad from happening. So at this point, if this is actually training material, then Chauvin's going to walk. He did exactly what he was trained to do. And yes, once you see that happening, once Chauvin walks, Minneapolis is going to burn, and so are a lot of other places in the country, unless they don't tell you about it because it's not politically expedient. And that's the other thing that goes right back to the DC shooting that we talked about at the top of the show. If it's not politically expedient, if they think that it's going to help Trump, they're not going to tell you about it either. So, something to watch for as we go forward off of this. Alright, I got two more, and then we're going to do a thing that I like and two things that I hate. So, from the Daily Wire, Biden finally takes a real question from a reporter. "It doesn't go well," from Ryan Saavedra. I read a lot from Ryan Saavedra. He's like the top author over on the Daily Wire. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden finally took a real question from a reporter on Wednesday after largely avoiding questions from reporters for quite some time, and it didn't go well. Fox News reporter Peter Doocy managed to get in a question at the end of an event where Biden spoke and asked the 77-year-old about past comments that he made about the coronavirus pandemic and subsequent actions that he took. You said that you warned President Trump in January that there was going to be a pandemic and what needed to be done, Doocy said. If you knew then, why were you still hosting crowded campaign rallies in March? Biden struggled to give a coherent response, which doesn't necessarily mean he didn't have a response, it's just because he's Joe Biden, as he repeatedly made false claims like suggesting that he was the first person to call for using the Defense Production Act. Biden has repeatedly tried to falsely claim that he was the first call for the numerous actions to be taken in response to the coronavirus pandemic, when in reality President Trump had already taken action on those issues. The Daily Wire highlighted 7 such examples. Biden called for coronavirus tests to be free 9 days after Trump signed the family's first Coronavirus Response Act. Biden called for coronavirus testing to be available nationwide 12 days after Trump announced that the testing was available in all 50 states. Biden called for cooperation between the federal government and the states after numerous Democrat governors praised Trump for his work with them. Biden announced that Biden announced support for barring entry into the U.S. for individuals who had been to China 2 months after Trump announced a travel ban on China. Biden called for a CDC team to go to China 50 days after the Trump administration took action. Biden claimed that he called for the Defense Production Act to be used before anyone, which came shortly after Trump announced plans to use it. And Biden called for someone to be put in charge of handling the coronavirus response 5 weeks after Trump tapped Vice President Mike Pence to lead the White House Coronavirus Task Force. On social media, Biden was widely accused of attempting to deflect from having an answer to the question because Biden reportedly held 8 rallies in March, while Trump held 1, and nearly all of Biden's rallies happened after Trump's rally. And that's the transcript of this, no, Biden, I don't know why they're trying to run this guy. He clearly has no idea what's going on, and you're clearly voting for Kamala Harris. If you vote for Biden, clearly, he has no idea. And yet, here we stand, with people on social media still trying to make the case for the guy. Just let the poor man retire. Alright, last one here, then we'll do a thing that I like and a couple things that I hate. Trump joked that Sarah Sanders should take one for the team after Kim Jong-un wink, her book says. Speaking for Myself is scheduled to be released next Tuesday. That might be an interesting read, actually. I don't actually care for reading political officials' books, especially after they've retired, but I really, really like the way that Sarah Sanders tossed around Jim Acosta all the time. So this one actually might be an interesting read. I might have to pick this one up. Let's see what Bree Simpson has to say. President Trump reacted with a joke after finding out that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had winked at Trump's then press secretary Sarah Sanders. She writes in her forthcoming memoir, according to reports. Trump told Sanders that she should go to North Korea and take one for the team. Sanders claims, in Speaking for Myself, Faith, Freedom, and the Fight for Our Lives, inside the Trump White House, according to The Guardian, which obtained a copy of the book. Kim had winked at Sanders during a nuclear summit in Singapore, the report said. Kim Jong-un hit on you. He did. He fucking hit on you. The president laughed after Sanders relayed the 2018 incident to him, and then Chief of Staff John Kelly. Later in the limousine, as they drove to the airport, she writes, Sanders said that she was taking notes during the summit and looked up to find Kim Jong-un staring at her. She says that they made eye contact, and he nodded and appeared to wink at her. All I could think was, what just happened? Surely Kim Jong-un did not just mark me, she writes, She avoided looking at Kim for the rest of the meeting, The Guardian reported. Well, Sarah, that settles it. You're going to North Korea and taking one for the team. Your husband and kids will miss you, but you'll be a hero to our country, Trump joked as he and Kelly burst into laughter, she writes. Sanders claims that she told the president she hadn't interpreted the incident in the same way. Sir, please stop. she recalls telling Trump, according to The Guardian. The Singapore summit was the first of 3 meetings between Trump and Kim before denuclearization talks stalled. In speaking for myself, Sanders focuses on her time in the White House, but also writes about being a working mother and her aims of potentially running the governorship of Arkansas. So, yeah, that's, everybody takes it way too seriously and literally as well. We saw this trending on Twitter yesterday, and the fact that, Trump is trying to trade a woman. He's so sexist. He's so misogynistic. Dude, settle down. It was a joke. Between colleagues who apparently know each other well enough that Sarah Sanders can speak for President Trump. Because she did so for a very long time. Sarah Sanders was my spirit animal. She absolutely was. Because of the way that she tossed around Acosta and other reporters with that no-nonsense deadpan stare. They couldn't crack her emotion. They did once. They cracked her emotion once. And still, she stood up in front of the crowd and said, "Sit down, Jim. It wasn't your turn." I want to have that control over my emotion, just like she did. All right, that's what I have for news for the day here. We're going to skip this one for Monday because that one's too far. So now we're going to do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate, and I'm going to have some breakfast and go to work, and you guys are going to go on with your days, and we're all going to be happy here. Ron's going to go and pick up the eggs from his chickens, and everyone else is going to go to work too. So, thing that I like today, I stopped watching this when Netflix came out with some interesting stuff, but I've been very interested in this story. I got about halfway through the second season the first time, and that is the TV series on Amazon Prime, The Man in the High Castle. So the premise of The Man in the High Castle is that an alternate history, it's a Philip K. Dick book that was turned into a TV series, but in an alternate history where the axis of evil won World War II, now we're back in the United States where Japan has everything west of the Rocky Mountains and the Fourth Reich has everything east of the Rocky Mountains. There's no more U.S. anymore. And we see a freedom fight that erupts in the middle of the country where people are starting to go back at the midst of Adolf Hitler beginning to die. Japan wants to take over the entire United States, and freedom fighters, young and old, want to take the United States back. Even getting only halfway through the first season, it was an incredible story. I really enjoyed looking at it. I do want to take some time and read the book. I'm going to watch the TV series first because I've got like 10 books on my backlog right now, but I do want to take some time and read the book as well because I think it would offer a more interesting insight as to what happened for all of this. It seems, it's obviously not historically accurate, but it seems very historically minded off of this too. Like just the idea of what history would have been if the Nazis had taken over the eastern half of the United States. I recommend it highly to anybody, especially if you have Amazon Prime. I recommend this very highly to anybody. Let's listen to the trailer, actually. Let me get your ears on here.
There are very few things in this world worth dying for. Those things do exist. But when there's something truly worth fighting for, you're gonna know it. Trust me. If the Nazis can be beaten in that world, they can be beaten in this one.
America is a rebel nation. Only an American can truly control it.
The Reich murdered our sons.
These two empires that we fight for, they're little more than sandcastles. Only the tides are forever.
We are going to fight back. The Reich has built a portal to another universe. Millions of people are gonna die. And your husband is in charge of it all.
You don't know my husband.
No, you don't know your husband. I've seen a lot of versions of my life. Each existence as real as the next.
This thing that we have been a part of, it has to stop.
I don't know how.
Why did you come back?
To kill John Smith.
It ended when you said goodbye.
So that was the trailer for The Man in the High Castle, which, yeah, like I said, even as little bit of as I've seen, I definitely recommend it. Definitely recommend checking out the book. So, absolutely, 100%. And I just started it over last night. I got about halfway through the first episode before I fell asleep. But definitely going to be going through and finishing it this time because, yeah, I want to see how this ends now. And the fourth season is out too, so I can actually go through and just binge it all the way through to the end. So, that's what we'll see off of there. Definitely go recommend it. It is on Amazon Prime, so if you have a Prime membership, it is included free with your Prime membership. All right, let's do a couple things that I hate. So, Tom Elliott writes over on Twitter, Jill Biden on viral photo of 5-year-old crying while trying to do schoolwork from a home computer. If Biden wins, he won't be sitting there crying. Why are you pasting your campaign on these children? You have every opportunity right now, and it is perfectly fine to open up the schools. Now, what are you telling me, Joe Biden? If Joe Biden wins, we're just going to magically open the schools back up? That this is Trump's fault that this is opening, everything is closed right now? Because the media is coming out and feeding us this narrative that, oh my God, we just need to keep the schools closed a little bit longer, because we need more chaos and more job loss. This is just like everything that we saw yesterday. Well, if you don't elect Biden, the violence will never stop in the streets. That's a fucking threat. And the way that we're doing this, and we'll watch this video here quick, but the way that we're hearing this is another threat. These kids will never get to go back to school unless we take the power, unless we take the presidency. So let's see what has to be said here.
Who was just broken down into tears while he was learning online. What is your message to boys like this one, his mother, and of course he speaks for millions?
My message is when Joe Biden is elected that he won't be sitting there crying. He will be sitting there with his laptop with a smile on his face. Joe has empathy. He understands what families are going through.
Teachers are now having to focus on a syllabus and not only has...
Okay, no, fuck that. That's even worse. I gave him the benefit of the doubt that he wanted to put kids back in schools. No, it's the equipment. They're going to promise equipment out to people. Free shit is what's going to make this kid happy. Not going out and spending time with his friends. Not hanging out and being social with each other. We're social animals. That's even worse. Fuck you, Jill Biden. I don't usually want to go after a first lady or a prospective first lady, but no. You're going to be the one that's speaking for Joe until he dies and then Kamala Harris takes over. So no, fuck you. And of course, they've got to have the global numbers up here too. All right, and the last thing that I hate today, because I had to do two today because they tied for the thing that I hate the most. From CBS 4 Denver, Boulder police, woman assaulted 12-year-old boy over Trump sign, from Anika Padilla. Police in Boulder want to find a woman who attacked a 12-year-old boy who was riding his bike with a yard sign supporting President Trump. Police said it happened on Monday at Folsom Street and Glenwood Drive. According to the police, a woman riding a moped passed a boy and saw the sign. The suspect made a U-turn and approached the victim and began assaulting him because of his political banner. The suspect then attempted to take the banner, but was unsuccessful. The suspect was described as a white female in her 20s or 30s, wearing a tan jacket, blue shirt, and blue jeans. The moped was blue or gray. The assault is still under investigation. A woman on a moped. A 20-something-year-old woman in a moped drove up to a 12-year-old on a bicycle, punched him, and took his sign. What is wrong with this world? What is happening to these people? I had my disagreements with Obama. Don't get me wrong. I thought Obama was a terrible president. I thought his agenda is the reason that we're sitting at some of this violence right now. It would never occur to me to hit an Obama supporter, especially a fucking minor. That would never occur to me in any part of my right mind. Anywhere. These people are absolutely broken with their hatred for Trump at this point. A 12-year-old boy on a bicycle. But look for more of this as we go further up into the election season and things get closer and tighter, and the polls get closer too. I do think that part of what's going on, if the left was winning right now and they knew that they were winning, I don't think that they would be nearly as violent as we're seeing like this. They would be smug, they'd be gloating, they'd be telling people to shut up, but this is frustration and violence. So that's what I have here for the day. Sorry to end on such a down note, but that's what we're seeing up off of this today. I'm going to try and get out of work a little bit early tonight so we can come back and play some video games tonight. Because I've skipped it for a few weeks now. We still want to finish up Fallout New Vegas. And we need some unwind time. And like I said, I would have done this on Tuesday, but I wound up staying late at work as well. So I'm going to try and get out of work early. We'll do some video games tonight. Otherwise, we will be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.